Do you ever feel like playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Pro, HD, Reloaded, Max, Remaster, Super Remix, Ultimate, Reforged, Premium Definitive Edition with a boneless pizza and a 2 liter of Coke, Final Cut, On God, Deadass, Frill? No? Me neither. Gaming has evolved so much ever since the first space shooters and text-based video games came out. Trillions of dollars in revenue, and gaming being the biggest entertainment industry by quite a margin is just the beginning. Everyone nowadays knows Super Mario, Sonic, or Travis Scott from Fortnite. This huge success allows big companies to develop new technology specifically designed to make games look and feel as realistic as possible. But not only that, it also allows big companies like Netflix or Amazon to just step into this niche and try to win over a completely new audience without giving a single sign of passion or interest in what they're actually doing. Video game adaptations are also getting more and more frequent. Ever seen a movie where you felt like you've already seen this movie 6 million times? That's exactly what's happening with bigger companies in the gaming industry as it's getting more mainstream. Don't get me wrong, doubling down on a winning idea or strategy is nothing new and there's nothing wrong with it. Take Hades for example, developed by an indie studio that came up with a brilliant idea of this roguelike that took the world by storm. Supergiant Games never released a sequel before, but now that Hades was so successful, they're trying to make a profit out of a successful formula. Does that mean Hades 2 is gonna be bad? I don't think so. I mean, don't fix what's not broken is what they say. Activision has been doing that for almost 20 years now. People are always complaining about how they're selling the same game over and over again and that we consumers have to stop supporting them. But if that's so, how can it be that almost every time a new Call of Duty releases, it ends up being the most selling game of that year? People clearly don't put their money where their mouth is. Of course nothing's going to change. If something's profitable, companies are going to keep doing it.
But excuse me, Warzone was completely different than any other COD. You know nothing about my favorite game.
I agree, Warzone was completely different, but you know why they did it? Because it's a battle royale, which is super trendy right now. Fortnite is still the most played game, PUBG has its peaks, and PUBG Mobile is still popping off. You can't go wrong with a battle royale. They did the same thing with the zombie mode back in World at War and the following titles. Zombies just were really trendy at that time. See, there's one big problem with AAA studios that cannot be avoided, and that's money. Money is the root of all problems, as always. I'm sure that developers at AAA studios are as talented and as creative as indie developers, but there's one thing that's stopping them. Corporates, heads of those companies that don't care about anything but revenue. Do you think it would be a good idea to pitch your brand new concept for a game that has never been done before to your boss? Hell no. He would instantly shut you down without even batting an eyelid. It could be the best idea for a game that's ever been thought of, but the problem lies within the word could. It's not proven to be successful. It's not proven to work and generate a lot of money. Big companies don't like to take risks, and the good thing for them is that they don't have to. They could just re-release their games with a few bug fixes, quality of life changes, maybe new parts of story and a whole load of microtransactions and call it a day. Or they call it the Definitive Edition. But sometimes even that is too much effort. On one of those days, it's enough to release the same game years later to newer gen consoles and AI upscale the background images like they did with Persona 3 and call it a remaster. Like, bro, what the hell did you remaster? Your wallet so it fits more money and now you have to fill it up? Like, look at this. Does that look next gen to you? You may ask yourself why they're doing that. I mean, the answer is simple. Because it works. Because they don't have to do anything different. The problem does not lie within the companies. The problem lies mostly within the consumers. Because there's always going to be suckers for those games that will just accept the pile of crap that those companies release and defend it as if their life depends on it. That's where indie companies come into play. They have to do something different or else they would just go down in the pile of tens of thousands of games released each year. They don't have the budget to market their game or a big name in the industry to just sell whatever they want. They have to impress and they have to excel. There is a reason it all started with indie developers to begin with. Space War, proclaimed to be one of the first, if not the very first video game, was developed by a few MIT students back in 1962. Space Invaders was developed solely by Tomohiro Nishikado. Dwarf Fortress was developed by Tarn and Zach Adams. That also inspired Notch to make Minecraft, and there's so many more today. You got games like Hades, Celeste, Hollow Knight, Cuphead, Stray, and of course, Cookie Mama Snorts Coke. Say what? Wait, that's not on the list? What do you mean? But that's like That's like my favorite game. Not only are there an exceeding amount of indie games that are super fun, engaging and really good, but there were so many times in history where indie games revolutionized gaming. That time where Space Invaders started the first wave of ginormous crowds gathering together to celebrate this gaming achievement. Halo being made by a few students driven by pizza and beer, ending up in generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and probably one of the biggest fan bases ever. Minecraft now being the most sold game in history and basically being the Zeus of all sandbox games. Rogue defining a completely new genre, and there's so much more. My point is that indie games have to perform exceptionally well to be recognized and earn themselves a place amongst the gods of gaming. AAA titles, on the other hand, go the safe route. A route that's already been paved, that's known to work and perform. Not all of them, of course, but many of them. A few exceptions are From Software, that is known to take risks. Santa Monica Studios is known to make games of the highest quality. CD Projekt Red being the Psy of video games. But contrarily to those, we got a few scapegoats in the industry as well. EA and Activision Blizzard are probably the biggest ones. EA is basically re-releasing the same game every year, just changing the number at the end of it. Activision is doing the same thing with Call of Duty, as we've talked before. Blizzard released Overwatch 1.1 under the name of Overwatch 2, and don't forget the...
Do you guys not have phones?
But you know what all of these have in common? Everything may be broken on release of a new game, but we can all be 100% certain that the microtransactions in those games work on day one. And not only that, but take the Battle Pass for example. Every single one of them looks pretty much the same to trick you psychologically into always seeing a familiar face and drive you into buying that stuff. But of course, we can't always blame Western companies. I mean, take a look at the eastern part of the globe, especially in genres like MMORPG. The Korean MMOs are known to be completely pay to win. Gacha games are known to make an AliExpress version of successful titles and put gambling into them, usually with good-looking waifus to trick lonely 40-year-old software engineers into spending thousands of dollars to jerk off to pixels that accompany them into their wildest dreams. Yeah, what a world we live in. But even ambitious AAA companies have their hiccups. Take No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077 for example. Ambitious projects by renowned studios that had so much potential and promised their fans too much in too little time. Once more, we have the corporates doing dumb stuff for revenue. Setting impossible to meet deadlines for the devs does nothing but destruction. Instead of taking their time and releasing the good game that they promised to put out, what they ended up doing was releasing an unfinished mess and offering refunds right after. Cyberpunk was even removed from the PlayStation Store for a while. Don't get me wrong, these games are really good by now, but they couldn't use their initial hype to their advantage. But better do that than fixing a few bugs and releasing the same game as a new title for $60, call it a remaster, then decrease loading times in the next update and release it again as a super remaster and so on. Another thing that was brought to my attention by two of my recent pickups, Hogwarts Legacy and Forspoken, is AAA companies trying to be something that the youth refers today as woke. In Forspoken, for example, the protagonist is an African-American orphan woman, but she grew up as a criminal in an environment full of mostly black criminals. It seems like Square Enix was trying to be more inclusive, but somehow met more stereotypes than showing their errors. In Hogwarts Legacy, every other character is either a lesbian, a trans, black, Indian, or Asian. I already see the comments calling me sexist, transphobic, racist, and so on, but I just don't get why they do that. They chose Hogwarts in the 1800s as a setting. I get that you don't want to stick to reality, because if you do that, you would have to make the most racist school with characters whiter than Discord and light mode, because that's what the world looked like back then. But why the hell would you lay so much weight on how NPCs look like in your game or where they originated from? I get it that it's all part of marketing, and unfortunately that's basically the best way to get a bigger audience in 2023, by being more inclusive. But man, what's next? Do we have to pick up our litter after a fight in the next Spider-Man to save the environment? Instead of focusing on such things, get back to focusing on fun, like games used to do in 2010 or prior. And once again, we're at a point where I have to ask you, ever seen an indie game do that? I can't think of one right now, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. If you want to have fun in gaming still, please hear me out. Please play indie games. We have to show those AAA companies that we don't want the things they're doing. We want more of what smaller companies do. We want fun in gaming. We want to turn off our brain at the end of a hard day and drift away from reality and its problems. There's so many different fun games that are not recognized because smaller developers don't have the budget to market them. Play those games. If you see a game that you like, share it. Make a video about it and share it. We as consumers have to do something about it. If we don't, then I fear that gaming will become more and more like every other kind of entertainment. But hey, that's just my opinion. If you liked it, check out my other stuff. I talked about Forspoken in my last video, for example. Let me know if you share a similar opinion or hate me if I talked smack about your favorite game. Alright, see ya.